Hello and welcome, my name is Ken, if you don't already know that by now, and I am here presenting to you another interesting video. So today I'm going to be talking about the reading test. I know at this point you're wondering why the reading test. Well, most people have come out to confess that of the 4 test elements for the IELTS test, the reading test and the writing test are extremely difficult, or are the ones that give them a lot of troubles. Yeah, sleepless nights, as you could say. So what am I going to be talking about in the reading test? I'm going to be looking at the question types. There are about 14 question types in the IELTS reading test, but I'm going to talk about 12 of them, 12 of the most common question types that come out, that surface in the test. So just for better understanding, I will be classifying them into 2 things. So I'm going to classify some reading test type as MADU, and I'm going to classify some others as sweet. MADU and sweet. Now when I say MADU and sweet, what do I mean? When I say MADU, let me describe it like this. You know how you go into a test feeling all prepared and you're like, no man, I'm going to do very well in this test. Then they give you the question paper, you look at it and you're like, then the next question you're like, then you're going to the next question, you're like, MADU. It means that that test is unusually difficult. So for those of you who didn't understand what MADU means, it means unusually difficult. And for those of you who already know what the next one is, which is sweet, it means the test or the question that you are encountering is extremely, or is in some way very easy. And I'm going to be classifying these question types like that. So come along with me, stay with me. I'm going to do this so you understand what I mean. The first question type I'm going to be talking about is something called matching heading questions. Matching heading questions. Sounds simple, right? So at this point, I'm going to classify it as MADU. It is not sweet, it is mad. I will explain why it is mad as I go along. Another question type I'm going to be talking about is something called sentence completion question. Sentence completion question. Hearing that, you might think, oh, that doesn't look like something that's going to be sweet, right? But you're wrong. Sentence completion questions in the IELTS test are sweet questions. You will not have problems with them because of their nature. I'm going to be saying a lot about their nature in the course of this test. Let's go to another one. Another type of question is called the MCQ question. Multiple choice question. I can just feel it in my bone that someone is celebrating right now. Multiple choice question. Yay! There's going to be options. Options A, options B, option C, and questions that have options are the best kind of questions, right? Wrong. In fact, if there's a question that epitomizes MADU, it is the multiple choice question. Why did I say this? Because you would look at the options and they will look very, very similar. You know, you'll be looking at the instructions saying pick the correct answer, and you're like, what are you saying? All of them are the correct answers. No. Only one is the correct answer. Multiple choice questions in the IELTS test, especially the IELTS reading test, allows the persons who set these questions to be very creative. So for you to be able to answer this kind of questions, you must have what you call a 70% knowledge of the passage that you are expected to study. And for you to have 70% knowledge, it means you must do at least a good bit of reading, knowing that time is not your friend in this test. This is what makes the MCQ questions, that's the multiple choice questions, MADU. Let's go to another one. Another type of question you look at here is going to be called summary completion question. Summary completion question. And that type of question is sweet. Now, why, you might ask? So summary completion question by its nature is sweet because there's a passage. At the end of the passage, there's a 1-paragraph summary. In that 1-paragraph summary, there are spaces that is left for you to fill in the right answers. Because it is a summary, it is very easy for you to track down the things that you need to fill in. Especially if you read, say, the first paragraph or the the passage you're reading that you are given and the last paragraph. Now, usually what this also means is that if you are able to detect the question, the first question in the question series for the summary completion question, that will serve as a pointer, a signpost. So imagine you have question, say question 12 now, and you found the answer to question 12 in the passage. That answer will be a signpost to question 13. When you find question 13, that question 13 answer becomes a signpost to question 14. So yeah, easy peasy lemon squeezy, right? Another question we're going to look at is something called true, false, not given, or yes, no, not given. For people who have encountered this test, people who are currently practicing, or people who have done the test before, they know that this true, false, not given is a given in the IELTS reading test. It shows up all the time. Yeah, it doesn't matter how long you pray and fast and say, oh, Father, Lord, I don't want true, false, not giving question. I don't want true, false, not giving question. But if it comes out, let it just be in one section. Let it just be in one section. Then you get to the exam and you open your question, boom, and you see true, false, not giving section 1. Boom, true, false, not giving section 2. Boom, true, false, not giving section 3. I'm like, come on now. At this point, what's happening? What happened to all the fasting and prayers that I did? So it's one very common question type that shows up all of the time. And you ask me, is this simple, that is this sweet or mado? Well, it is actually the oga pata pata of the mado industry. This true, false, not giving question. Why, you might ask? Well, I always tell people that apart from the fact that the question is usually set to have a lot of traps that a lot of candidates, how do I put it, people who test takers fall into, it's also potent an actual problem. Many Nigerians, if you have many people who encounter the English language that are not native users of the English language, find it difficult differentiating between not given and false, because our head seems to be programmed to this yes or no thing, right? It's either a yes or a no. It is either true or false. This not given, I don't understand it. Maybe it could be a culture thing, because apart from the fact that Generation Z people, when you ask them a question, they don't say yes or no, they just say not really. You ask a Generation Z child now and say, hello, do you like math? And the person tells you not really, and you're confused. What, is it a yes or no question? What's not really? In this case, you're not dealing with a not really, you're dealing with a not given. And it's important for you to be able to differentiate a not given from a false. We will be talking about this subsequently in the video. Another question we're going to look at now is something called choosing a title. Choosing a title. Now, choosing a title should look a bit difficult, isn't it? But it isn't really. It's actually a sweet question. It's so sweet that it only appears once as one solitary question. Just one. Yeah, it's like, you know, the guys at the IELTS exam, but they're just dangling a carrot. It's just, this is the only easy thing we're going to give you, so to say. So it's just one question, and as the name suggests, choosing a title, you are going to be given options, 3 options, A, B, C, and you would have pretty much encountered the passage with other questions, and they're going to ask you what will be the ideal title for the passage you have just encountered. The answer usually sells itself to you. It's usually very glaring and very obvious. So that kind of question, I usually like to call a bonus mark question. Having said that, let's move to another one. Another very confusing one that falls in the MADO category is something called the diagram completion question. That type of question is very confusing for a lot of people, because it feels like you know, you're going home and you just met a nice meal on the table, you take a spoon, you put it into the meal and put it in your mouth, and you're going, delicious, and someone looks at you, pops out from nowhere, you need to tell me all the ingredients that was used to cook that meal just by tasting it. And you're like, I didn't ask for this, I just wanted to eat something nice. And they're like, tell me the ingredients. And you go, I think, yeah, at this point, that's how it feels like, because with this type of question, you see a diagram in front of you. Some parts of it have been labeled, but a good part of it hasn't been labeled. So they just write A, B, C, D on it and tell you, okay, so what will A be labeled as? What would B be labeled as? Many times you'll be reading the passage and you keep is this thing, I know this is going to be in the labeling, right? In the diagram, right? But is it A or is this B? A lot of people get very confused with questions like that. And those kind of questions are, pretty much hard, so there's no point. They just leave it that way. Haven't talked about this. Another one we are going to be looking at is matching sentence endings. Matching sentence endings. So in this case, you have a sentence, but it doesn't feel complete. There's always going to be a dash at the end. And what you have to do is to try to complete that sentence ending. Now, I don't need a genius to tell you that this question type is simple, is sweet. Why? Because a part of a sentence is missing. The other part gives you all the clues that you need by way of keywords to seek out the missing words from the passage. It will be very easy to do that because you have a lot of clues to work with, as against other question types that you do not have anything by way of clues or by way of, how do I put it, strategy to employ to try to answer those questions in as quick a time as you can. So yes, this type of questions that is called matching sentence ending questions are absolutely correct. Now, one of the reasons why it's also beautiful is it also comes in with options. So let me give an example. What it means is you have a passage, then you have the question itself, which is a sentence with a dash, another sentence with a dash at the end, and you have to complete the endings of all of these sentences. Once that is done, just at the bottom, there's a table, right, with several options that you can pick from. Options A, option B, option C. Now, you see the interesting thing about this question, sometimes you may not even need to read the passage. You can just use your initiative to look at the options and match it with the sentence and say, this is the best thing that suits this sentence based on the context. Right? This is one of the reasons why this question type is absolutely lovely. Let's talk about another one. It's called list selection questions. List selection questions. Now, list selection questions can be complicated, like MCQ questions, multiple choice questions, because you will be given choices. Say, maybe you'll be given a list of 8 to 9 itemized words, and they will ask you to pick 3 and ask you to pick 4. Then you read the passage and try to look for the things they ask you to pick, but you don't seem to find the words because they've either paraphrased those words or used the synonym of those words in the passage, right? And you keep searching and searching and searching and searching, and in your bid and desire to find the right answer, you take a lot of time and exhaust time that you do not have. So yes, one of the things, if you notice the common factor with all of the things I have called MADO, all of the question types I've really called MADO, is that for you to be able to answer these question types efficiently and effectively, you need time. A commodity that you do not have in luxury with the IELTS reading test. This is what I need you to understand. So let's look at another one that I call sweet. It's called a flowchart question. A flowchart question. So how does this question appear, right? It's absolutely sweet. Don't get me wrong. Flowchart questions are sweet. So why am I saying this? Why do they appear sweet? What is it about these flowchart questions? So it's very simple. So with a flowchart question, you already see a flowchart, meaning there's something that's like steps, a process. So step 1 is filled. Step 2, there's an arrow leading to step 2, it isn't filled. Then another arrow leads to step 3, which is filled. And then a follow-up arrow leads to step 5 or 4, which is not filled. So your responsibility or your duty here is to fill the empty ones, right? In that flow. Just by the virtue of the fact that it is called flowchart tells you that it is ordered, right? It is in a certain sequence. Meaning if you are able to find where the sequence starts from in the passage, you are likely to know where all the answers to that particular flowchart question, all the answers are in that particular flowchart questions, where they are in the passage. Just look at the passage and look at. So if, for instance, you see the answer to number 2 in the flowchart question in, say, paragraph 3. You are likely to see the next one in paragraph 4 or paragraph 5 because it's a process. Yeah, it's weird for me to say step 1, step 2, step 10, then come back to step 5 after I've gotten to step 10, because it is going to be a stickler for a proper process, except it's a scattered process intentionally. Yeah, flowchart questions are essentially easy. All right, so what else are we going to look at again that we've not talked about? Let's see. I have 2 more that I haven't talked about, so I'm going to talk about them. Is it 2 more or just 1 more? Okay, I think 1 more. The one I've not talked about is table completion questions. So here, I'm sure you're wondering, when you see a table in a question that has to be in a reading passage question, it should scare you, isn't it? You just read the passage and the next thing you're trying to answer the question, you should be expecting things like, where in the passage did they, instead you're seeing a diagram being drawn, a table being drawn, and it has several columns in the table. Some columns are filled up and some other columns are not. They are very empty. And you are being asked to fill the empty columns up with words from the passage. You can find this very confusing, but let me just tell you one thing about table completion questions. They're as easy as pancakes. Yeah, as easy as making pancakes. Why? Because the nature of the question means that you are likely to get all the answers to the question, to the table, to fill up the table in 1 or 2 paragraphs. Meaning, if I find the answer to the first column that I need to fill in, say, paragraph 5, it means for me to fill up that particular table, I'm not going to go beyond paragraph 5 and paragraph 6. Everything is going to be in paragraph 5 and 6. Forget about the other paragraphs, right? It's going to be in and around this place. And you just go there, study that aspect of it. You're not really reading the whole essay. Just study that aspect, pick out the answers, place them in the table, and you're done. So this is me telling you that there are some questions that are mad and some questions that are absolutely sweet. So let's do a quick rundown on the questions I said are difficult and mad. 1. Matching heading questions. 2. Multiple choice questions. 3. Matching paragraph information questions. 4. Diagram completion questions. 5. List selection questions. And 6. True, false, not giving questions. Now let's move to the one that I say are sweet, right? First, summary completion questions. Oh, sorry, I think the first thing I said was sentence completion questions. So let's start from there. Sentence completion questions. Secondly, summary completion questions. Thirdly, choosing a title. The fourth one is matching sentence ending questions. The fifth one is, as you can see, flowchart questions. And the last one is table completion questions. So I've just given you 12 of these question types that I have classified into being easy and being difficult. So now I'm going to talk to you straight, mano a mano, from one person to another. The truth is, the reading test is not as complicated as you think it is. If you are getting anything from what I am saying, what I'm trying to say is, the moment you can understand this classification I just made, you would understand something really key. It will help with you planning a strategy for your reading test, right? If these are basically 12 of the question types that are likely to show up, and you already know the easy ones, if you walk into your test on that day and they give you a test question, whether it's through a computer if you're doing a computer delivered test, or through a paper if you're doing a paper-based test, once they give that question to you, it is very wrong of you to try to want to answer all of that questions chronologically. There are 40 questions in the reading test. The reading test is divided into 3 parts, part 1, part 2, part 3. People who get into trouble in the reading test are those ones that go, oh, they say start. Question number 1 answered. Question number 2 answered. Question number 3 answered. And you're trying to answer like that chronologically, you will get into trouble, because what's going to happen is, while you're doing question number 21, you will hear something that says, you have 5 minutes to the end of this test, and you're like, oh my god, shit, I'm just in 21, I need to get to 40, oh god. And at that point, you see all levels of panicking going on. Now, I've always felt that the best way to approach the reading test is to understand what you're in for. First off, you need to know how many questions exist in each section. If you read or have known about the IELTS reading test by now, you would know that as you progress along the test, it gets difficult. So what am I saying? If there are 3 sections, right? Section 1 will be the easy one. Section 2 will be easy and maybe a bit tasking, but section 3, the IELTS reading test section 3, it's difficult. Just imagine the worst people in the world, like all of the villains you can think about in your superhero books and your comic books, coming together with all the witches of the world coming together to set the questions that you will find in section 3. That's how hard you expect it to be, because the passage will be long and boring with words you're not used to, and you try reading it and you'll be so bored out of your mind before you're even done getting anything out of it. So yes, this is how the section 3 is going to be. Alright, so in another video, because I don't want this video to be really long, but in another video I'm going to be talking about these question types in details. I wouldn't say everything, but I'll just probably take 2 or 3 of these question types, talk about it in detail, and offer strategies on how to conquer them. I do hope you've been able to pick something up here today. Please let me know if there's anything in the test you would want me to talk about that could help you. Anything you're having any challenges with, just let me know. You can just drop your comments at the comment section of this video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed what you just watched. Please subscribe so you can get more of this interesting content. Until next time, see you in another video.